Hey everyone, it's Gamefruitpulp and welcome back to another Minecraft Building Toronto video. Today's video is not going to be the one that I expected to come out next on my channel, but there's been some delays on the video that I was planning on putting out, so in the meantime I thought I'd put out this one. This is another video that I had in my head for a while since the 1.17 update came out, but wasn't really sure the best time to do it, and I figured why not the present. So what you're going to see in this video is me redoing a couple of the roofs in some of the buildings in Toronto with the new 1.17 update. Obviously with that update, copper comes out and that changes a lot of things for us on the project, which is really exciting. Before we jump into the commentary for the video, be sure to check the description for a bunch of cool links to different things on the channel, my Discord, my Patreon, my social media accounts, as well as my merch page. So if you're interested in any of those things, be sure to check the description of the video below. And if you are enjoying the videos and you're not subscribed, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more Gamefruitpulp content in the future. So jumping into what today's video is going to be all about, we're going to be doing 3 different buildings today. The first, as you can see right now, as I build in the rain in the night, which will be resolved shortly, at least the rain part, not the night part, is the Fairmont Railway. Arguably one of the most iconic buildings in the city, behind the CN Tower. I think everything's behind the CN Tower, but I would argue that this building may even be more important than the CN Tower in the sense of the history of Toronto and the importance of the building, because this is sort of the first major piece in the city that exists today. And so it was nice to be able to sort of look at it again and take some time to redo it in a sense, and redo the roof and add some more detail that wasn't previously there. The actual cinematics for this one were rather difficult because there was so much going back and forth to either sides of the build and swinging it around. So I got to challenge myself a little bit with the movements of the camera angles. I hope that I did a good job of it. So obviously I redid the roof, which was already done in a green terracotta, and then added some more details. The sort of oxidized copper effect is visible throughout the Fairmont Railway on pretty much every flat roofed surface, in addition to the sloped roofs at the very top. So in our build, those weren't there. It was only there for a select few on the east end near the rooftop bar area. So I did the roof line, which you're seeing me finish up now, and then you'll see me move on to the actual flat roof area, where I just use a waxed, weathered copper slab to surround the exterior of the building. I think it brings the building a lot more life. You'll see at the very end, once I'm done all of it, I sort of do a quick pan out, and I think it looks quite nice. I think that it gives the building a little bit more character that you find in the real world building of the Fairmont Railway, and anytime you can improve a building like this, I think that's obviously for the better. We have a rule on the project that we try and stick to, and that we don't return to builds to change them too much. This is something that we largely stick to because we want to make outward progress. You don't want to be constantly redoing the same buildings over and over. That being said, for a video like this, I think the addition of a new block, it's a good reason to look back at some of your builds and say, hey, this new block is pretty cool. It's something we've been wishing for a while. How do we improve? How do we use it to improve our buildings? And so that's what we did here. Obviously, the Fairmont is probably one of the most important builds we've done on the project so far. So anytime we can take a little bit of time to improve that, it's a welcome addition. So as you see, some of the quick camera work flying back and forth. Again, let me know what you think of it. It's a little bit quicker than I normally do, but I was trying to figure out the best way to demonstrate what I was doing, because I was essentially going around the perimeter of the build at every level and adding the new blocks. So you can see like the camera work a little bit maybe could be improved a little bit. Let me know how you think I did, and if you think that kind of is a cooler way of doing it rather than the slow, graceful angles that I typically do on these sort of cinematic videos. But we're just finishing up the Fairmont now. Again, in total I probably spent an hour to an hour and a half on these 3 buildings. The majority of that time was spent on the Fairmont, but I think that time was worth it for some minor changes that bring out all 3 of the buildings quite a bit. And for those of you who haven't been on the Toronto server, the Fairmont Railway is right near spawn. It's one of the easiest buildings for you to visit. So I encourage you to hop on and have a look at it. And really, if you do want to explore the map, there's a lot for you to explore, and the Fairmont is one of the first things. Those of you who aren't familiar with the Building Toronto project, the interiors on all of our builds are completed in addition to the exteriors, and the Fairmont was one of the ones that we tried to do as closely as possible, so you'll see a resemblance in even the lobby level bars and things like that. So that is pretty much it for the Fairmont, and now moving on to the next building. The building was built originally, this one, RBC. It is at King and Young. And this one was an interesting one because this wasn't moving from weathered copper to new copper. Sorry, it wasn't moving from prismarine to weathered copper. It was actually moving from what would have been weathered copper to new copper. They just redid the roof of this building, and so in addition to the weathered copper on the very top, I changed the other roof details from nether brick to copper as well, just to try and capture the true essence of the building. And I think it does make the building pop a little bit more realistically to how it does in the actual version of the build. And it was a quick change to just the top level. It's something that you won't really notice too much from street level, but something that I think was important to do. So I'll fly around to this one. And one thing I was trying to do with these builds is I could have done some alterations to the roof lines. I didn't want to do that. I wanted this video to be about changing the blocks rather than changing the builds. And that's a big thing that I tried to stick to, like I said earlier, the sort of principles of the project, that you don't go back and change builds that have already been done, because what's done is done. We want to make outward progress. At the time, if we thought it was good enough, then I think it should remain good enough. Because if I go back to the very first things I built on this project, like TD Tower and those kind of things, I'm pretty sure I would not like some of the things I did and I would want to redo them. But obviously that's not the spirit of the project, and that's not the spirit of how I personally conduct myself when I build this stuff. And so this was one of those ones where Star built this for me a few years ago, and the roof line isn't quite how I would build it, and I thought about changing it, and I thought, no, we're only here to add the new weathered copper blocks. And so you can see the difference in color. It's much more accurate now when you get rid of the green terracotta and you add the weathered slabs. I think the weathered ones look better than, I can't remember what the most green one is. I don't know if that's called oxidized or what it's called, but I think it looked a little bit better with the weathered. You still get that little tiny hint of copper color. I think that the full green one in this case was too green, which is why we didn't use it for any of them. That being said, some older things like some really old churches and stuff like that down on Church Street, which we haven't built yet, maybe it'd be more applicable there for the full weathered. And that's what's nice about the varying levels of blocks, in that they added the waxed version so that you can sort of keep it stuck at a certain age level, which is super cool, and something we can use both, I think. In certain builds, maybe we'll add some weathered, or some regular copper that can weather over time, because the way Toronto works, for those of you who don't know, is that the time in Toronto does not work like a regular Minecraft day. It works with the actual days of Toronto. And so if the period for copper to weather is Minecraft days, which I believe it is, but I'm not certain, then in theory it would take a lot longer for something to weather in Toronto than it would for it to weather in the single player version, or in the server version of the game, the townie version I should say. So that is something for us to consider going forward, but ultimately I think for all the three buildings that we did today, it was best to do the regular waxed versions of the copper blocks, so that we were secure, stuck in time as a sort of time capsule to what the buildings were like when we built them. Obviously, looking back now, we're adding this stuff. And the same thing with this building, Commerce Court North, that I did with the Fairmont Royal York. A lot of the flat roofing areas was trimmed on the exterior with the copper that is now oxidized over time and turned green. But that is everything. Just a short little video looking at some of the quick changes for 1.17 that I made to the map. That is going to be everything. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you're a returning viewer, be sure to leave a like and share the channel with your friends. See you guys all later.